Starting us off, in at number 10, we have the Alaska Triangle. The Alaska Triangle covers an area ranging from Juneau in the southeast to the northern Barrow region all the way over to Anchorage. This is an area that apparently craves souls, and more than 20,000 people have gone missing without a trace in this region. So what's the explanation for this? Some people believe that a mythical creature is roaming in this area and he likes to feast on human flesh, while others believe that this area causes you to become confused and disoriented, so you're not able to find your way home. The most famous disappearance was back in October 1972 when an airplane that was carrying some pretty important political leaders suddenly disappeared. This led to one of the largest manhunts in Alaska's history. It lasted 39 days and it involved 400 aircrafts, 12 US Coast Guard vessels as well. But nothing was ever found. Even to this day, this remains as one of the biggest mysteries in Alaska. And you know what? Note to self, never visit the Alaska Triangle, because it's just as scary as the Bermuda Triangle. Why is everything in triangles? Charman heats things up in at number 9. Charman has a pretty gruesome backstory. This urban legend is about a father and a son who were both caught in a house fire, and they suffered from horrible burns in 1948. After the fire, the son became so mentally unstable, which caused him to stab and hang his father to death. When the police finally found the son, he was so burnt that they weren't even able to tell if he was alive. So he was able to run away before they can arrest him for the brutal murder. Ever since that night, the chairman can still be seen wandering around the woods that surround Ojai, and that's located in California. Rumor has it that he will approach tents and torment campers. He will also attack anyone that goes in his way, and it's unclear on how many people he's actually killed. So be on the lookout if you are in Ojai, California for the chairman. Let's head over to the Beast of Bladenboro over in North Carolina, and this brings us in at number 8. This terrifying creature looks like a panther, but he is a bloodthirsty killer who lurks in the darkness, and that's because he's looking for his next meal. He is known to attack dogs and even people, so watch your back if, yeah, we're not in North Carolina now, I don't have to worry here, but if you're in North Carolina, watch yourselves. People have claimed to see this beast say that he's about 3 feet long, 20 inches high, and has a long tail with a cat's face. Others say that his scream sounds like a woman being stabbed with a knife. According to the local reports, animals in the area have died mysteriously, and all of their blood was drained from their bodies. Some of them were mutilated, and some of them were even found with broken bones or completely flattened. So is this just an urban legend, or does the Beast of Bladenboro actually exist? I'm really hoping that he doesn't. Moving in at number 7, we're talking about the Chupacabra. His name literally means goat sucker, and I think this is a real thing. This creepy animal is said to roam through Mexico, southwest USA, and Puerto Rico. The Chupacabra is blamed for killing livestock and terrorizing people. They look like a hairless bear, and sometimes they can be seen with spikes on their backs. I just hope this guy doesn't get thirst for human blood, because if that was the case, we'd all be in a lot of trouble. I'd probably never leave my house. Even though he's only an urban legend, I would still be afraid. I mean, just look at this thing. This is what nightmares are made of. The creepy clown statue scares us in at number 6. Not everyone loves clowns. Actually, a lot of people are deathly terrified of them, and this urban legend is no exception. This story actually originated from a chain letter that was being circulated in 2006, and the story goes like this. One night a couple went out to dinner and called the babysitter to watch their kids. When the babysitter arrived, the kids were already fast asleep in their beds, so she just hung out downstairs for a couple of hours until the parents called. She said that the kids are fine, but would it be alright if she put a blanket on a clown statue that was in the room because it made her nervous. The phone went silent for a moment, and the mom replied with, "We don't have a clown statue. Grab the kids and get out of there as fast as you can." And at the bottom of the chain letter it says, "If you don't repost this letter to 10 people within the next 5 minutes, the clown will be standing next to your bed at 3 a.m. and he's gonna be there with a knife." I mean, I've already passed this letter on to you guys, so now it's your turn to pass it on to 10 more people. Riverdale Road drives onto this list at number 5. This creepy road is located near Thornton, Colorado, and it is full of horrifying urban legends. From a ghost ghost who attacks parked cars, crazy demons, and a phantom car, this road has it all. But probably the most terrifying story about Riverdale Road has to be about the gates of hell. If you're brave enough to drive along this road, you will see some pretty rusty gates, but legends has it that these gates are actually a portal to hell. It's no wonder why so much demonic activity is reported here. But the fun doesn't stop there. You'll also see a bloody handprint suddenly appear on road signs. You can see ghosts hanging from trees, and if you're unlucky, you might even see some shapeshifters who are out there to kill you. The dog boy barks onto this list at number 4. This urban legend takes us all the way over to a small town in Arkansas. Apparently there is a 300-pound half-man, half-beast creature that has glowing red eyes who is known to bite at people's heels and chase them down the street. Sounds like someone needs to call the Humane Society. This urban legend originated from an even darker story. The dog boy was based off of a problem kid who used to enjoy torturing animals. Eventually he graduated from animals and he began to torture his own parents. He even locked them up in the basement where he can severely injure them on a daily basis. So that's how the dog boy urban legend came to be known. But this is actually a true story, which makes it 100% worse. Diving in at number 3, let's talk about Hell's Gate Bridge. A young couple was driving over this bridge, but they somehow managed to swerve their car off of the bridge. This happened during the nighttime and they ended up drowning. So now there are 2 legends associated with Hell's Gate Bridge. The first one is, if you drive your car in the middle of the bridge and turn off the lights, the couple will magically appear in the back seat and leave a wet spot. And the second urban legend states that if you drive over the bridge and you look over your shoulder halfway across, you will see a portal to hell engulfed in flames. So make sure you guys don't put your car in reverse because you might not be making it out there alive. The Wendigo dropped onto our list at number 2. Well, he's a terrifying creature who has an irresistible hunger for human flesh. This beast has to consume human flesh in order to survive the cold winters in North America. And no matter how much flesh they eat, they will always be hungry for more. They supposedly measure in at about 15 feet tall, have glowing eyes, yellowish skin that looks like it's decaying. Legend has it that the Wendigos used to be humans, but they are formed whenever humans consume the flesh of another human being. So if you don't want to become a Wendigo yourselves, then you should probably take human flesh off of your menu. I think we should name the Wendigo to Hannibal Lecter. It's just fitting. Cropsy terrifies us in at number 1. If you live around Staten Island, then you probably recognize this name. Cropsy is rumored to be a homicidal lunatic who escaped from a mental institution. He apparently has a hook for a hand that he uses to hunt children and drag them back to an underground tunnel system. Parents used to tell their children that Cropsy is around the area, so they're better off staying close to home. Because for all they know, Cropsy could be anywhere and he could wait at any moment to claim his next victim. But then things took a turn for the worse when Cropsy became more than an urban legend. Children around Staten Island actually started to disappear for real, and that's because there was an actual homicidal madman who really did hunt children. His name was Andre Rand, and Staten Island was never the same since.
Coming in at number 10, we have the Wendigo. The Wendigo is something that we like to talk about a lot on Life's Biggest Questions. The Wendigo is a lesson that cannibalism is never gonna end well. The legend of the Wendigo comes from the Algonquin people, which is actually relatively near to where I am here in Toronto. I've actually been to Algonquin National Park and I was scared of bears the first time I went, but the next time I will be aware of the Wendigo. The story of the Wendigo goes that once he was a lost hunter that during a particular harsh winter, and trust me they do get very cold here in Canada, got really hungry. He couldn't find anything to hunt, he couldn't find anything to eat. This continued for days, for months. His hunger became so intense that he turned to cannibalism. After eating human flesh, he became a crazed monster and continued to roam in search of his next fleshy meal. Now the Wendigo, who is 15 feet tall, looks a little like this. Ooh. The Wendigo is said to roam free in the icy plains of Canada and the northern states of the USA like Minnesota, Illinois and upstate New York. The legend has legs too, literally. There have been several spates of Wendigo sightings over the past 150 or so years, most notably when a number of people from the Algonquin went missing starting in the 20th century. The Wendigo was to blame. The Wendigo is said to lure you away from civilization to icier plains and will then eat you alive. Hard no from me to Mr. Wendigo. Stay away. Do you want to meet the Native American Voldemort? Coming in at number 9, we have the Legend of Two-Face. This is a morality lesson and a scary urban legend at the very same time. The Legend of Two-Face, often called Sharp Elbows or Hester Voto Kio, is about not giving attention to bad things. The story is most popular among the Sioux people, and incantations can be found across a lot of First Nations groups. The story goes that the two-faced creature is a bit of an attention hog, to put it lightly. They are a nasty presence that wants you to look at them. They will do anything to get your attention, but be warned, if you give in, if you look at it, if you give it the attention it craves, it will cut you. Actually, though, it will cut you. One legend is often told about a heavily pregnant Sioux woman. She heard a voice behind her and intuition told her that she shouldn't look around. She was right. The strange voice tried even harder to get her to look, but still she did not. Later, she told her husband, and he was glad. He said that the voice had come from a malevolent creature that would appear to her 4 times. She must ignore it each and every time. If she successfully ignored it 4 times, it would leave her alone forever. Now, it did appear twice more, and twice she successfully ignored it, but on the 4th time, things didn't go well. The 4th time came and she decided to have a peek at the creature. Curiosity got the better of her and she peered through a crack when she thought it was turned away. But what did she see? A ghoulish being with 2 faces and razor-sharp elbows. Its other face turned to look at her directly. It lurched out and cut her to shreds. Lesson being, never give in to negative voices no matter how hard they shout. They will destroy you. Coming in at number 8, we have skinwalkers. In Navajo culture, the legend of skinwalkers is enduring. In fact, the legend is so widely perpetuated that a lot of people outside of the Native American cultures are very scared of them too. Skinwalkers are said to be witches who ascend to their superhuman powers by sacrificing/murdering a close family member. Honestly, how awful. These skinwalkers can then take the form of an animal of their choosing, but they most commonly appear as wolves, owls, coyotes, foxes, and even crows. These witches are said to be extremely dangerous, and you do not want to encounter one for fear of invoking their wrath. What will their wrath do? Straight up murder, once again. These skinwalkers are said to be most commonly found stalking deserts in California like Death Valley, the Mojave National Reserve, and Joshua Tree, so watch out. From skinwalkers to Skinwalker Ranch, up next at number 7. Some weird things have been happening at the so-called Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. Native Americans in the area truly believe that the area is plagued and cursed by evil spirits, and well, they might actually be right. The ranch became notorious in the media when the Sherman family spoke out about their experience living there in the 1990s. Their stories involved strange lights, ghostly apparitions, and the tale of an invincible wolf that I found particularly interesting. It seems that the Sherman family came across what seemed like a friendly wolf. So friendly, it approached them from time to time. Sadly though, the wolf could not be trusted. It killed a number of their cattle, which are expensive to come by. Now this prompted the head of the Sherman family to shoot it with a .375 Magnum. Nothing. It was struck again. Nothing. The wolf was shot several times more, but it simply walked away. Was this an encounter with a real-life skinwalker? Maybe. Coming in at number 6, we have stick people. Beware the stick people. While they may seem like cheeky pests, they're actually pretty malicious when threatened. The stick people are a legend from the Salish who live in British Columbia. They believe that in the woods there are a tribe of mystical people, stick people. They're a lot like other native tribes, but they're very elusive and they have mystical powers. They communicate by using bird and animal sounds. In the woods, it is said that they will disorientate wanderers with mind control powers. Tricksters, sure. The stick people are said to enter villages at night and mess with tribes, stealing their nets, eating their food, or simply just pulling down men's clothing. Classic. However, you never want to encounter a stick person face to face. This is why young First Nations children are warned never to enter forests alone. If you come across a stick person, they will feel very threatened, and the next time they enter a settlement, they will do more than steal food. They will actually steal children. They'll take the children as punishment and raise them as slaves. Coming into number 5, we have ghost sickness. In Native American culture, it is possible for a person to fall ill with something called ghost sickness. Navajo legend has it that ghost sickness can strike if a deceased person is not buried with the right rituals. If that is the case, the spirit of the deceased can become disruptive and make a living person ill. With ghost sickness, the sufferer will start having terrible dreams about the person who's died. They will become obsessed with their death. They will feel depressed and also physically weak. They may also start to hear voices. According to legend, the only way to recover from ghost sickness is to undergo a ritual performed by a religious leader, and often make adjustments to the burial of the dead to satisfy them. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the cause of ghost sickness. Up next at number 4, we have the chindi. So the chindi is said to be bad energy left over from a person who has died. The chindi is produced when a person takes their last breath. Actually, a lot of First Nations people believe that it is much better for people to die out in the open, as it leaves more space for the chindi to disperse. Dying inside a house practically dooms that building to being haunted forever. The Navajo are so wary of invoking chindi that will actually get rid of a deceased person's possessions. Even saying a deceased person's name is a certain way to summon their bad energy. Just don't do it. Coming into number 3, we have the legend of the dust devils. Navajo people are watchful and wary of dust. Why? Well, because they're actually spirits interacting with the land in the form of a little whirlwind. Whether it's benevolent or malevolent depends on the direction the dust or dirt is spinning. In Navajo folklore, if you see dust spinning in a clockwise direction, everything's fine. But if it spins counterclockwise, well, you better have your wits about you, as you are in the presence of an evil entity. Giant disembodied heads, anyone? Sure. Coming in at number 2, we have the legends of the flying head. The flying head legend is most popular in Iroquois and Wyandot culture. Flying heads are thought to be produced from cannibals or from battles wherein people have physically lost their heads. Flying heads are giant, ravenous beings with neck-length hair. Do you want to see a depiction? I'm kind of here for them. I can imagine myself as like a giant ravenous head sometimes. Some descriptions even have them with bat wings, and they're said to have an insatiable hunger, so insatiable that they're often led to eat people. Nonetheless, no man-made weapon can kill them. The only way to be rid of them is to trick them into eating hot coals. Easier said than done, I think. Finally, coming into number 1, we have the owls. I really like this tale of how owls were created, and it's pretty scary and may make you feel not so great about our murderous feathery friends. As told by the Yakama, the story goes that there was once 5 sisters who lived in a cave. These sisters were no normal humans. In fact, they would eat vile things like frogs, lizards, snakes, and mice, things that other First Nations people simply wouldn't eat. Some even said that they would eat tribes people if they took a disliking to them. Were these 5 sisters the native equivalent of witches? Quite possibly. They seem to be in touch with a lot of bad energy and cause a lot of people a lot of problems. Luckily for the other tribes though, one by one the women died. Finally, everybody breathed a sigh of relief as the final sister drowned. You would think that would have been the end of it, but no. From one of her eyes, it is said that all owls were created. Sure, because owls. Now when you see owls, apparently they are a small part of the evil 5th sister, part of her soul that's always watching and waiting. But for what? Owls. Who knew?
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Grunch. This one comes from Louisiana. In the early days of New Orleans, there was a road called Grunch Road that went deep into the swampy woods before coming to a dead end. That is where the Grunch people lived, a strange hybrid of albinos and dwarves, forced away from society and made to live in their own community. As the years went by, people started to doubt the story's authenticity, but it sparked up again when people started disappearing down Grunch Road. Nearby farmers reported their animals missing or finding them dead and drained of blood. Many locals now refuse to head down Grunch Road for fear of meeting the same fate. Moving on to number 9 now, we have Stull Cemetery. To those that know the story, Stull Cemetery in Kansas is better known as the doorway to hell. Legend says that the devil himself chose the cemetery as his entrance from the underworld to our own. Now it's said that a tree once stood in the cemetery and an old tombstone there was inscribed with the word witch. The tree was used to hang condemned witches back in the day who were were put to death by the locals, the tombstone apparently marks the burial spot of Satan's own child, a creature born deformed and covered in wolf hair. In modern times, the legend has continued with reports of the ground catching fire in random spots. Pope John Paul II was said to divert his private plane around the cemetery because it was so tainted by evil. Now, whether or not you believe all of that, there's plenty of videos on YouTube to check out if you're interested, and I find them quite creepy. Moving on to number 8 now, we have Knock Knock Road. This one is for all of you guys watching that get very creeped out by little girl ghosts. I think they're the worst kind of ghost. Strasburg Road near Detroit has a disturbing tale of murder attached to it. Legend says that a little girl was killed on the road in the 1940s by a hit and run driver. Ever since then, people have reported the same story. They stop at a traffic light and see on the side of the road a young girl standing, just standing and staring right into your car. Whether they freeze or then try to speak to her, she slowly walks forward to the car and stares at you with deep set hollow eyes. She scans your face to try and find her killer and get her revenge. I guess you better hope you just don't look like the killer. At number 7 now, we have the Charman. This story goes that in 1948 a wildfire swept across Ojaji, California. The flames consumed a cabin where a man lived with his son. He was burned alive, but the son survived, just barely though. When the authorities arrived, they found a shocking scene. The father had been flayed alive. His skin had been removed from his body and peeled off. His body was just hanging from a nearby tree. The police then searched for the perpetrator. They heard a wheezing sound from a nearby bush, and then suddenly the son just bolted out of it. The overpowering smell of him stunned the officers, and in that moment the boy ran into the trees and then escaped into the hills. In the years since then, many locals have said they've seen the Charman in the woods, horribly disfigured by his burns and tormented by his past. He's said to creep up on the tents of innocent campers in the hills, waiting for them to fall asleep. Coming at number 6 now, we have Hell's Gate Bridge. This one comes from Oxford, Alabama. The story goes that in the 1950s, a young couple crashed their car off the side of this bridge and drowned. Now, some locals believe you cross the bridge at your own peril. One story is that if you drive your car out to the middle of the bridge and then turn off all the lights, the couple will appear in your car just sitting behind you. When you turn around, they'll be gone, leaving a wet seat behind. The other story is that if you drive over the bridge and then look over your shoulder about halfway through, the scenery behind you turns into a portal to hell, just spouting fire and flames. Now, whether or not you believe all of this, it's enough for some people to just look for a different way to cross the river. Moving on to number 5 now, we have 100 Steps Cemetery. This is located in the town of Brazil in Indiana. Interesting name for a town, and the cemetery is even more interesting. It's been used for at least 150 years, and in that time it's gained quite a sinister reputation for a ghostly undertaker. The story goes that as you walk up the many steps to the top of the cemetery, you must count each and every step. When you reach the top, you must turn towards the open field, and then the ghost of the cemetery's first undertaker will appear. Without saying anything, he will then reveal your own death to you in a vision. Straight away, you must proceed back down the steps and count each one again. If the number is different to the one that you counted on the way up, the vision was true. An added bonus is that if anyone tries to cheat and climb up or down without using the steps, a ghostly hand will push them to the ground, leaving a red imprint on their back for days as a mark of the devil. Definitely not a place to go for just a Sunday walk then. Next up at number 4 now, we have the Goat Man of Pope Lick. I love my job because I get to say sentences like that. This is an old Kentucky urban legend about a hideous being who roams the woods across that state. Those who have seen him describe the Goat Man as having dark fur, pale skin, goat legs and twisted horns. Some people say he was an escaped circus freak, others say he was a farmer who tortured goats for Satan. Satan then repaid him by turning him into a tortured goat himself. The Goat Man is said to hide under the rusty bridge that crosses Pope Lick Creek in Louisville. Legend says he lures people onto the train tracks there and then takes pleasure in them being hit by oncoming trains. Please don't go looking for this one though, guys. In 2016, a woman actually fell to her death from the bridge while looking for the Goat Man. At number 3 now, we have Slaughterhouse Canyon. With a name like that, you know it's not going to be a pretty story. During the 1800s gold rush, a family lived in the canyon there in a little wooden shack. Every day was the same. The husband would set off into the mountains to search for gold and food for his family. Then one day he just didn't come back, presumably injured or killed by animals, the mountain, or even other humans. His wife waited for her husband for weeks until the whole family began to starve. Driven mad with the hunger and her children's cries, she put on her wedding dress, picked up a knife and murdered her children, throwing them into the river and then weeping until starvation killed her too. Legend says that if you visit the canyon today, day, you can still hear the mother's painful cries. Alright, next up at number 2 now, we have the Black Angel. This statue looks very creepy as it is. An old, worn, corroded angel staring down over Oakland Cemetery in Iowa City. Her sinister appearance has helped spawn a number of different legends around her. One of them says that a pregnant woman should never walk under her lest they want to lose their unborn child. Another says that if you kiss or perhaps even just touch the statue, you'll be dead within 6 months. This is the kind of story that scares everyone off. Whether or not you believe in curses, it's just not even worth thinking about. And finally, number 1 now, we have Cropsey. Many New Yorkers know the story of Cropsey, the boogeyman of Staten Island. Legend says that he was an escaped patient from a mental asylum who went on a murderous rampage. He had a hook for a hand, which he would then use to drag children back to the abandoned ruins of Seaview Hospital. Pretty creepy stuff, but here's where it gets really scary. Many parents would tell this story to their kids to scare them into being cautious about strangers, even if they didn't really believe the story themselves. But then in the 1970s, a real killer called Andre Rand really did start hunting children in a very similar way. Was he using the Cropsey legend as cover? Either way, people now take the legend a lot more seriously.